Sunday school leader, I've read through this lesson text many times this week. I kept trying to find something, a little different angle or something new maybe to share, and I really didn't find much that wasn't in the text itself, that wasn't in the lesson material. But I have a couple of thoughts to share with you. I know this is late. In fact, I'm recording this about 5:30 on Saturday morning before Sunday. And so, anyway, hopefully you've read over your lesson already and kind of know what it's about. But just as a reminder, we're in the unit entitled The Dark Side. This is week 2, looking at demons, out of Mark 9, verses 17 through 29. And the point is that demonic forces are real, but Christ is greater. Well, let's give a little context to our story. We're in chapter 9 of Mark, and at the beginning of the chapter, we're at the Mount of Transfiguration. And if you remember what's going on there, we have the 3 inner disciples, Peter, James, and John, and they're with Jesus, and they're up on this mountaintop, and they see Elijah and Moses, and see them talking with Jesus. It's a true mountaintop experience. Well, they come down off of the mountain, and the other disciples are down in the valley, so to speak, and they have been unsuccessful in trying to drive out a demon. Now, later in the chapter, we see that those disciples are all arguing on the road about who was greatest. You see how all these stories intertwine. You have the mountaintop experience with Peter, James, and John. That's got to be outstanding. You know, nobody else was experiencing that, had ever or have since experienced something like that. Then you've got the humiliation of the other disciples, that they can't drive out this demon that we're going to talk about. And Jesus, just with a word, it happens. Well, there's also another demon story in this chapter. It's down chapter 9, verses 38 through 41. And John says to Jesus, we saw some other folks driving out demons, and we told them to stop because they weren't one of us. And Jesus told them, hey, if they're not against us, they're for us, so leave them alone. Now, here's our story, verses 17 through 29 in a nutshell. Hopefully you already know this. It's already Saturday. Hopefully you've already read your lesson. But a man brings his possessed son to Jesus. The guy can't speak. The son can't speak. He foams at the mouth. He gnashes his teeth. He becomes rigid. He throws himself into the fire, into the water, trying to kill himself. And Jesus commands this spirit to leave. Now, the spirit shrieked. It shook the boy. He came out, and he looked like a corpse there was on the ground. And then the disciples asked, well, why couldn't we do this? And Jesus says, well, this kind can only come out with prayer. And some manuscripts say prayer and fasting. Well, goodness, these symptoms sure look like epilepsy, doesn't it? But it was much more than that. First of all, the demon-possessed boy shrieked when Jesus came near. He knew what was going to happen. Let's compare this to the story we had a couple of weeks ago about when Jesus cast out the demons into the herd of pigs. When Jesus came near, the spirit recognized what was going on, and he cried out to Jesus. That didn't happen here. But we see here that this was not epilepsy or just epilepsy. It was much more than that. It was a demon. The demon possessed the boy. He was intent on killing him, throwing him into the fire, making himself throw himself into the water, trying to drown him. Well, here are just a few things to think about, just a few extra things to consider as you're preparing and teaching this lesson. First of all, the demon possessions are not all alike. We see that with the story 2 weeks ago when Jesus cast the demons out into the herd of pigs. Also, not all sickness, not all epilepsy is demonic. It's not due to a demonic possession. Because we see this in other places where Jesus heals people who are deaf and mute and blind. He heals these people, doesn't mention a thing about demonic possession. The people didn't act demon-possessed. They were just sick. Jesus touched them, healed them. So let's just be careful when we start blaming demons for illness. All right, and of course we mentioned this last week with Satan, but demons are real. But Christ is greater. So we need to remember that. We've got an enemy forces, but Christ is greater than these forces. And any confrontation that we have with the dark side is not to be a sideshow. If you notice, Jesus took this boy off to the side to heal, to cast out these demons. It wasn't a show for everybody. Now here are a couple of questions that might come up in class, so here's a little starter to get you thinking about these. And that is, first of all, can a Christian be demon-possessed? I'm going to say no, a Christian cannot be demon-possessed. 1 John 4:4 says that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So the Spirit's in us, God's in us. That, there's not dual residency here. Also, 1 Corinthians 6:19 says that the Christian, the believer's body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Okay, I believe that Christians can be oppressed. You've probably heard that. Oppressed but not possessed. Oppressed means that there's that outside taunting, almost like that drill sergeant that's up in your face, right? Oppressed but not possessed. There's the outside taunting but not the inside controlling that we see here in these scriptures. Also, another question that comes up, and it just doesn't seem fair. Can children be possessed? We see here that this son was possessed since he was a child, since he was just a little child. Also, in Matthew 15:22 through 28, there's a Canaanite woman who brings her young daughter to Jesus to be healed be delivered from a demon. So the answer is yes. Now, why that can be, how that can be, I don't have an answer to that. I just know that the forces are real and that can be a possibility. So, all that said, I hope you have a great Sunday school class. We'll continue in our unit and look at something next week. Now, you might be praying for me and our team. We leave in less than a week, and we will be in Haiti working with a children's home that we have partnered with over the last couple of years. So hopefully I'll have time in the busyness next week to have another video out. So, all right, pray for your class. Have a great Sunday.